All right, guys, here we go. Nationalism notes today. Again, as always, feel free to take some notes as we go, but there'll be some ed puzzle questions for you to answer as we go along here. So make sure you're paying attention and understanding what's going on. We're closing the door on the Industrial Revolution as of yesterday. So if you didn't finish any of that up, make sure you do so. And today we are going to begin our next topic, which will take us through the end of the week on nationalism. So before we really get to nationalism, I want to take a look at where we are in history, and we'll do this a lot more now that we're not together every day face to face, just to say, hey, this is where we're at in world history, and we're kind of getting to some of the more quote unquote fun. I know most of you make fun of me for saying that, but the fun times in history where it's things that we understand a little bit better because they're a little bit more modern. The technology of the Industrial Revolution has kind of created that. So this is the time period we're looking at with nationalism. So 1790s all the way up until 1910s, which is right before the start of World War One. The French. Here's what's going on in France. They're in revolution mode, right? We learned about the French Revolution. They're trying to fix their problems in France, and then Napoleon takes over. England, as we talked about with the Industrial Revolution, is flourishing, and really all of Europe is flourishing, and the world is being introduced to all these new technologies. Um, so the technology is advancing during this time, but we know that England had all those factors of production, the land, labor, capital, and so they're really in the best spot in terms of flourishing because of the Industrial Revolution. The U.S. now exists. Okay, after 1790, the U.S. is a country; it's its own nation. So we're getting to that time period where we know some of that a little bit better. And when we talk about nationalism, we're talking about mostly Europe when it comes to nationalism, and in particular, we're talking mostly Europe, in particular Italy and Germany. So these countries in Europe, they're doing fine. They're doing their own thing. They don't really uh, get involved in this nationalism stuff too much, but Germany and Italy do, and it'll take them all the way through the World War II, and nationalism will be a big problem for them, even past World War II into Cold War stuff, and so it'll last with them for hundreds of years, and it'll become a big problem. It leads to the rise of dictators like Hitler and Mussolini and those people, and so um, um, not a real positive thing, nationalism. So here we go. What is nationalism? Well, nationalism is extreme love for one's country, not one's native region. So it's like the love of the brand. Like some of you are obsessed with Nike or Lululemon or Birkenstock or whatever the heck you're interested in, but you have a love for the brand almost more than you have a love for the things that they make. And so that's what nationalism is. It's the love for one's country and the decisions that the country makes, not necessarily like the region. Like no one says, "Man, I really love how the United States looks." No, they love the United States and what it stands for, and things like that. So it's extreme love for one's country, or strong held opinions about what is best for the country. That is also nationalism. Is a strong held opinion or belief on what they believe is best for the country. And it can be both a positive thing and a negative thing. Some examples of nationalism here are an extreme pride in the United States for being the back-to-back World War champs, helping win World War One and World War Two. Um, and a lot of people have great pride in that. That's nationalism. Making shirts or different things or signs or posters or pictures with that on it. That's nationalism. Um, this right here is Miracle on Ice when the 1980 hockey team won, and you can see all the people waving American flags. And if you've seen the movie, you've heard the chants for USA, USA, those sorts of things. That's nationalism, having pride in one's country and wanting to beat other countries, whether it's at hockey or a war or whatever it may be. But that's nationalism, an extreme pride in one's country, and in one's nation um, is nationalism. This obviously here again a good picture of nationalism. This is women's World Cup from 2019. You can see the fans and they're all dressed out in United States gear. And when the World Cup comes on, more people than normal tune into soccer to watch it because in the World Cup it's not just soccer. It's the United States. Same reason why the Olympics are watched by a large audience. It's more than just the people competing in the sports. It's the countries competing against each other, and it's your love for your country, sometimes more than anything else that leads to um, you tuning in because you want your country to triumph almost as much as you want the athlete to triumph, and then they count gold medals and things like that. Here's a YouTube clip of what nationalism is, and it's gonna be kind of weird because you're watching a video within a video, but it's only like a minute and 20 seconds long, and I think you'll get a good understanding of what nationalism is by this, if it loads, which it looks like it will. We're not gonna watch the whole 3 minutes.
Kids, as you know, Aunt Robin grew up in Canada. That meant sometimes she dressed a little differently.
Okay, let's do this.
Sometimes she talked a little differently.
Ted, this hydro bill is bigger than Louis Sir's biceps. What, you leave the carburetor on all night, eh?
She hung out at different bars and enjoyed leisure time a little differently.
Make fun of the Great White North all you want. It's the best country in the world.
The social experiments. USA! 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 USA!
Okay. You know, what does that even prove, okay? You chat anything, people will join in. Canada! 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 Okay, they won't chant anything.
But, it's not going to be easy, this test. It's not like the Canadian citizenship test.
How do you know the Canadian test is easy?
It's Canada. Question 1, do you want to be Canadian? Question 2, really? How many stars are on the flag?
50, one for each state.
What are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution called?
The Bill of Rights. It's like, Barney, I know all this. I'm ready.
Ready for the test, maybe. But ready to be an American? Not on your sweet life. For you to be an American, we got to get the Canadian out of you. That's why I've created these questions. Question 1, who is this?
Queen Elizabeth II.
No, the answer is Elton John. Question 2, what the hell is this?
Oh, curling. It's a sport played.
Wrong. The answer we were looking for was, I don't care, it's dumb. Let's go buy something that's bad for us and then sue the people who made it. That's American, Robin.
All right, so obviously that is How I Met Your Mother. For those of you that don't know it, that's a show. Strongly suggest watching it, but you could kind of see it. It's not a great example, but you can see some of that nationalism in there, the chanting of USA and the putting down of other nations, because the guy there, who's the character's name is Barney, he believes that America is the best, and then it goes as far as to talk about how you may know that stuff, but you're not a real American until you do this other stuff, and that's what truly being an American is about, and that's nationalism, taking that pride in your country. And we kind of saw the bad things that it leads to. It leads to some ignorance of other countries and putting down of other people's way of life. But nonetheless, that is still nationalism. So here we're going to look at some characteristics of nationalism. What nationalism is it's the combination of language, race, and borders that brings people together. So if you look at the United States or England or any of these countries, they have a language that unites them, or a common language. It's not the language that everybody speaks, but it's one that is common. It's a common race, and then borders, and that would just be the borders of your country. That creates nationalism. And so nationalism isn't a belief held by all the time, right? In the United States, we are a country of many different cultures and ethnicities. But the main culture is, or the main language, I'm sorry, is English. And then I would say that the major race is European. And then the borders are obviously the borders that make the United States. That leads to a nationalism amongst some people. And sometimes that leads to putting down those races that might be in the minority or are not seen as much. So not everyone within a country believes in nationalism, but it's created because of a common language, a common race, and then borders creates this sense of our nation is superior to yours. It gives some people something to identify with or identify as. I think some people have this belief that if you ask them, where are you from? They say America. They don't say where their heritage is from, because living in the United States, you have that national view, identify as an American, much like Barney did in that clip that we saw. But it gives people something to identify with or as, and gives them a sense of who they are. Some people unfortunately think that we speak American in the United States, which is completely incorrect. We speak English. But again, that goes too far as to say, how far nationalism goes is people got that sense of identity. And some people do truly think that, which is unfortunate and kind of scary, but it gives people something to identify with. It People see their country as an extension of themselves, and what it really does is it leads people to experience. They feel that whatever happens to their nation is happening as if it's happening to them. A lot of people believe that. So, terrorist attacks like 9/11, when people saw that take place, for strong nationalists, they believe that not only is that attack on our nation, but that's an attack on the people itself, and people not even involved in the event. It's attack on them because they see our nation with extreme nationalism. You see your nation as an extension of yourself. Same thing with military strikes. When a country is to strike another, strong nationalists believe that's an attack on them, even if it doesn't directly affect them or the village that they're in or the city they're in, what have you. But that's what nationalism is. If you have ever seen the movie Rocky IV, he boxes the Russian and defeats the Russian, and a lot of people get this sense that we defeated the Russians because of that movie and that fictitious event. Because again, people identify their country as an extension of themselves. So whatever happens to their country, also happens to them. What does nationalism lead to? It can lead to extreme pride in one's country, which is good, but can lead to war. When you have such extreme pride in your country, you believe that all other countries and their way of doing things is incorrect, and so you want, if they, it can sometimes get so hotly contested that it leads to war and to conflict because nations think that they're more powerful and more supreme because of that pride that they have. Dislike of another country's way of thinking. For example, the United States dislikes communism. Russia and other countries that are communist dislike democracy. Extreme pride in one's race. This is another very poor effect of nationalism, which can lead to genocide. A lot of times nationalism believes that their race or their country is the ultimate country or race, and that can lead to the putting down of other people that are different than themselves. And then it leads to dictatorship, racism, genocide, and war. Right? That's some of these things we talked about here. But really, what nationalism leads to is it leads to someone powerful that believes so strongly in their nation taking power. It can lead to racism or putting down of other groups, genocide, which is the actual killing of those people, and then war. And there's plenty of examples of this throughout history. World War I and World War II are examples of the war that comes from nationalism. That's kind of why we're covering it right now, is because it plays an extremely big part in causing each of these conflicts, which are the biggest conflicts we've had in the history of the world. And so that's really important. Civil rights movement, extreme nationalism, even here in the United States, people don't associate it with that all the time. But in the United States, there was this extreme pride in one's race, and that led to the dislike of other races and slavery and putting things down, and then ultimately leading to the civil rights movement. The Holocaust is an example of nationalism and Hitler trying to create what he believed was the ultimate race or the ultimate civilization. And so he had an extreme pride in that type of person, and all other people that weren't like that, he obviously did created incredibly horrible acts against them, which we now know as the Holocaust. And then even modern day human rights violations, slavery that still exists in some countries, or the slave trade that we've talked about this year. Extreme pride in one's race leads to some pretty negative things. All right, so where does this fit into world history and what we actually are going to learn about? Well, again, England is flourishing because of the Industrial Revolution, so they're not worried about what's going on, really. France, they're consumed with their revolution. They're trying to conquer other nations. They're busy. So nationalism really takes place in Eastern Europe. That's where we're going to focus on nationalism taking place for the next week. And I guess that's it. But here's where we're really going to see it. Nationalism is going to unite the places of Italy and Germany. It's going to bring those places together, and it's going to divide the countries of Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. All right, so we're going to focus mostly on this uniting of these two countries, but nationalism also divides these places up. So I guess that's another important part of nationalism, is it can either unite you under one common belief or divide you into two polar opposite beliefs that are very strongly held. Because you could either come together based on your pride and belief, or you could separate because of that. So you can see here, all these different countries are kind of created because of that divide in Austria-Hungary. We've got Austria here, Hungary here, Bosnia down here, Galicia up here, and these become all these really small countries. Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania, all these small countries in Europe, in Eastern Europe, that exist to this day are from this nationalism, because these smaller groups of people created their own nations based on their strong pride in their heritage or their beliefs or whatever. They created their own nations. Same thing with the Ottoman Empire here. You can see it breaks up into all these smaller city-states. You've got Bulgaria, again, Bosnia, Turkey, Iraq, Kuwait. All those different places are created or formed because of nationalism and people's strong held beliefs. It divides those places. In Italy, it unites it into one country or one nation that we now know of as Italy. So before, you can kind of see it here, all these different kingdoms of Sardinia, Papal States, Tuscany, two Sicilies, all these different colors are different kingdoms or nations within Italy, and we know of it today now, obviously, as I'm going back here. We know it today as Italy, and so nationalism really unites Italy, and same thing with Germany. This is modern day Germany, and if you look closely, you can see it's the Electorate of Saxony, Bohemia, Wittenberg, the Netherlands, which today is now a country, but all these different places at one time. Same with Italy. There were all these different independent states, and they come together and unite to form one country under nationalism. But that's kind of where we're going with the rest of the week here. We're going to look at how Italy and Germany are able to unite with one another. All right. So make sure that you've read the directions for today and you know exactly what you need to complete. Once you do this, you're going to watch one video that kind of summarizes nationalism and gives you a better idea of kind of takes everything we learned today and summarizes it. And then tomorrow we'll move on from there. All right. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Ask questions if you've got them, and let me know what I can do to help you.